This is my reaction to Dan Vasc doing Bring Me to Life, male version, originally performed by Evanescence. Let's commence.
How can you see into my eyes like open doors, leading you down to my core, where I've become so numb?
Just before you can hear it building up with the guitar, and you just look at the face that Dan is making. He's about to, boom, he's about to give it to you. But just got to give you a bit of background in terms of my own recollections of this track. Very familiar with this song, the original Evanescence version. I think it's from their debut record that came out way back in 2003. I think that album's name was Fallen. But if I remember correctly, there were two versions. There was that album version, I think, that was just Amy Lee singing. There was just that straight up band version. But there was an alternate version that had the guy from 12 Stones, Paul McCoy. He was on there, adding a bit of more bite to it, a bit of a rap to it, a bit of a enhanced new metal vibe to it. Back in the day, so both those versions, and I think that alternate version might have been from the Daredevil soundtrack, Ben Affleck Daredevil from back in the day. So this track was a jam that I really enjoyed way back when I was so much younger, and it was a great track back then. And Dan has already started us off here wonderfully with that typical Dan Vasc magic, and he's just absolutely going to knock this out of the park. I have no doubts whatsoever. Let's keep going.
Without a soul, my spirit's sleeping somewhere cold until you find there and live back home. Wake me up inside. Wake me up inside. Call my name and save me.
Dan infuses these cover versions, these tracks that he takes on. He infuses it with so much power, and he infuses it with so much energy, ladies and gentlemen. It's that Dan Vasc magic, I'm telling you. He just absolutely puts it through the DNA of the track. His sound is just absolutely jamming. And he's giving us the version here that absolutely you can just rock out to it like mad. I'm enjoying this version here. Dan is not letting me down. I don't think he knows how to let the people watching him enjoying his stuff down. He's absolutely delivering, and we're not even halfway through the track. I'm just letting you know. Dan went super metal with that one. He was practically growling there. heavy. Almost like, just absolutely growling it out. Like, you have no doubts here. He's going to need some lozenges afterwards in terms of the vocal work. But he's absolutely just giving us that metal edge to it. I got no problems with that sort of thing, ladies and gentlemen. There was a time way back when I was much younger where, in terms of self-justification, I would just listen to metal music where they had the heavy instrumentals, but they just sang with clean vocals. and I would be like, oh, at least I don't listen to the growling. But later on, I got used to it as well in terms of the singers performing those growling sort of metal vocals, and I found that I ended up not really having a problem with it whatsoever. It's just another form of expression. It's a part of the genre as well. So I have no problems with that growling type of vocal that they perform as well. And Dan is slaying it here, ladies and gentlemen. He's not holding back. He's just pouring everything into this performance. And this thing is, it's doing the business. That's all it needs to do. It just needs to be, it just needs to jam and rock. And it is jamming and rocking. Yes. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, you need some throat lozenges after that sort of work. Get yourself some halls or maybe even something stronger. But Dan Vasc, absolutely, he did not, he did not have to hold back in any way. He did not hesitate. He just utterly unleashed in terms of his vocal performance on that one, ladies and gentlemen, giving us that heavy vibe there on a track that's a good track from back in the day. And he just absolutely mixed it up for us here, giving us his vibe. Absolute power, absolute face shredder, smashing through the walls, ladies and gentlemen. It's that metal attitude, and it came through and through in this performance by Dan Vasc. I dug it. Of course I dug it. I all types of music, you can bring it at me. There's very few genres of music that I will just completely dismiss outright. I'll give anything a chance. Absolutely anything under the sun. I'll give it a chance. I'll listen to it. And then I'll decide, do I dig the vibe? Don't I dig the vibe? But, metal. I've been checking out the metal stuff for many, many years. So absolutely I have no problem with the vocal stylings that Dan Vasc hit us with here. That was freaking epic. I mean, come on. You can't, deny that. That was freaking jamming. And Dan just absolutely gave us a performance to rile us up and to get us going. Good job, Dan Vasc. This was that debut album, Fallen's lead single. The label Wind Up releasing the single on April the 7th back in 2003. The song was written by Amy Lee when she was 19, ladies and gentlemen. And there was also some songwriting credit for guitarist Ben Moody and David Hodges. And of course, like I mentioned, Paul McCoy showing up on this track and giving us his vocal vibes as well. I mean, the funny thing here, as I'm reading here, is that Amy Lee was actually, the label actually just dumped this thing on her. She didn't actually want the additional, vocals there to be added. She was fine with the initial version of the song. So it's kind of against her wishes that the label just added in those rapped parts that McCoy brought to the table. I personally didn't have a problem with that version. We had both versions. So I mean, what can you do? Sometimes, especially back in the day, these labels, it was all about the marketing. It was all about appealing to a broad mass audience. So what they would do is they would do whatever was seriously popular at the time. They would try to fit into that. So that's what they were trying to do back in 2003. I think it worked out fine at the end of the day. Both versions are around. Both versions are cool. Both versions are enjoyable. So no problems for me. Evanescence, I believe, still to this day doing their thing, still rolling along, still rocking. But this was a great jam, and Dan Vasc just absolutely smashed his version of this song. I mean, I'm going to tell you, he just absolutely steamrolled this version, and he came out the other side looking fine. It was good stuff here by Dan Vasc. I enjoyed that immensely. Dan brought his unique flavor of metal thunder to this cover version. That was another awesome performance.